What the actual... job?
Hello and welcome back to What the Actual Job, where I interview people about their careers so that high school students can gain a better understanding of the jobs they like to pursue in the future. Today's interview is with Matt Davis, who is a videographer with the CRA.
My name is Matthew Davis. I'm a videographer, currently working for the Canada Revenue Agency. I started my career working in video in the private sector for about a decade, but then I wound up working for the government about 20 years or so, and I've been there ever since.
That's really cool. I think a lot of people don't know that working in that career can be in different areas such as the government. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah, no, it took me a bit by surprise too.
Yeah.
When I first started out, there were the odd person doing video in government, but it was usually more of a side of their desk kind of a thing, like they were doing something else, and then also maybe dabbling in video a little bit, or they'd be like a glorified audiovisual technician rolling up the projectors and things like that. So it wasn't really something that was permanently a government job, but over the years, like every government department now has social media channels and stuff like that, so the demand for having in-house video is really kind of grown. So that's kind of how I found my way in.
That's really cool. What would you say a typical day looks like for you?
Well, one thing about being a videographer in the government is that you kind of wear a lot of hats. Like teams tend to be kind of small, and so you're a few people, and so I don't just do camera. I don't just do video editing. I also tend to do scripting, or sometimes I'll go to meetings to give advice on video projects that are coming up, or so I tend to run around and do a bunch of different things, which is kind of part of the appeal for me too. It's like I like getting my hands into a couple of different pies, so so that gives me the opportunity to do that. That's not too different from my career in the private sector too, because it was very much a gig kind of work. Like it was never really a full-time thing, so if on Tuesday someone wanted me to do lighting on a video, then I would go and do lighting, and then if someone needed the sound guy the next day, then okay, I'll be the sound guy today. And so the main difference is that I was only going to do one role on that project in the private sector, whereas in the government I will do that one role, and then as soon as that role's done, now I'm doing I've done the video, I've recorded the video, and now I'm the editor, and now I'm the script editor. And so
what would you say you like most about your job, and what makes you want to come to work every day?
My group, we were working with a bunch of creative people, sort of all pulling in the same direction, and you get a lot of creatives who are working in government, which is sometimes a little bit more restrictive and a little bit dull. So it's kind of like, if there's something creative to do, it's kind of like you're dropping a pork chop in the dog park. Everyone wants a piece, and everyone wants to kind of get in on it, which is fun. And you don't often think of the government as being very creative. It often kind of feels dull. But sometimes the fun is kind of trying to find creative ways to be creative.
Yeah.
Right? So like part of the reason that drew me to the CRA in particular, like the Canada Revenue Agency, is like, it's taxes. It feels really dull, but when I was interviewing, I was really kind of given the impression that they wanted to do things kind of creative and kind of push the envelope a little bit. And I like the idea of doing that somewhere that's not seen as very creative, right? And so that was kind of an appeal to it. And there are days that are dull, and there are video projects that are dull, but you try to find the way to pull something interesting out of it, and find maybe the story underneath it that's important. Teasing out the why do I care of every topic is kind of part of the fun for me.
That's really cool, especially finding the how to make something creative out of things that are boring, like taxes, like you said.
Yeah.
That's really cool. What would you say is the hardest part about being a videographer?
The hardest part for me, well, I'll do kind of a two-parter for that. Like in the private sector, the thing that was hardest for me was because there's not a lot of full-time work. It's a lot of from job to job kind of thing. So it can be hard to kind of know where your next meal's coming from, right? In terms of work. Like I'd have weeks and months where work was just coming nonstop, and I was like, when am I going to sleep? And then there were other times when I was like, I haven't worked in 2 or 3 weeks now. Is everything going to continue to pan out all right? And so especially as I got a little bit older and started, having a family and getting married and stuff, like you really want to be able to know what your paychecks are going to be from month to month. And so that was a bit challenging. And also, like, if you try to find any kind of a balance, like when things are too busy, if you say no to a project or two, then you kind of worry, like, did I say no too often? Are they going to come back to me for work
Yeah.
next? In government, probably one of the hardest things is what I referred to earlier, which is finding that key story underneath every project. Sometimes the topic is genuinely dull, but it's
Yeah.
important,
Yeah.
right? So finding out what that important bit is, why it's important to the people who we're trying to tell it to, right? So so we can't always take too many creative risks and stuff in government projects, but finding ways, like I said, that you can be a little creative and that you can get out the information that's in a way that's not too dull.
Yeah. What would you say is the most valuable or significant thing you've learned from your career so far?
Well, I'm kind of harping on the same thing here. I mentioned finding the story before, and one of the things that I've learned, almost every topic has a story that shows its value or makes it make sense. Like early on in my career, I was working at National Defense. I was operating camera and editing for a project that was basically like a reality show about new recruits joining the Canadian Forces. Yeah, it was a really great project. It was, again, another surprise working with National Defense. I didn't expect that to be a very creative job, but it really was. So anyway, the premise was we chose 5 or 6 recruits and followed them through their training right up until their graduation, and then we tried checking in with them in their career as they kind of went out to different parts of the Canadian Forces. And the idea was to give kind of a sneak peek to potential recruits on what the training was like. Kind of either they'd get interested or they'd realize, oh, maybe it's not for me, or at least they'd go into it with their eyes open and kind of promote the Canadian Forces in general, right? And so one of the recruits that we ended up choosing was a guy named Wayne. And Wayne was 49 years old when he joined. And 50 is the limit. You're not allowed to join once you're 50 or older. And he actually turned 50 while he was in basic training.
Oh, wow.
And so at kind of first glance, he might not have been like somebody we would obviously have chosen. Like he's going to have more difficulty with the physical aspects of the training, and he struggled to learn some of the complex things that they had to do, like drill and weapons training and stuff. So it might not have seemed like a good choice to promote the Canadian Forces, right? Because he's screwing up, and maybe he's not gonna pass or whatever. But through the process, we kind of realized that this was kind of a really interesting story, because we interviewed him and he was determined to succeed, and he had this dream of joining since he was a kid, but didn't join because his dad didn't want him to join. And so I think his dad passed away a couple years before he joined, and so now this was this big dream coming true. And so anyway, so like I said, not an obvious story from like a surface level from our goal of promoting the Canadian Forces, right? But it became this really compelling story, and if he can do it, and so anyway, in spite of the challenges that he faced, it became one of the more compelling parts of the whole series. So that was finding a story underneath some of the stuff that that we weren't expecting, which I liked.
Yeah, that's really cool. Were there any expectations you had going into your career that turned out different from reality?
Went through college and came out of it ready to join the field or whatever. I expected to be on a show or maybe in a studio somewhere, or maybe I'd move to Toronto or LA and be in movies or something like that, or but reality kind of turned out to be a little bit different. Like I realized that I would have to move Toronto-based productions that came to Ottawa, and made some good connections, and was kind of weighing it. As it turned out, my wife's career was based here in Ottawa, and my family's all in Ottawa. So I found ways to kind of tough it out here in the meantime. Could have maybe made that transition to bigger, but I didn't really realize what it would have meant when I started out my career. You know what I mean?
What did you do in terms of education or training to become a videographer?
Okay. Well, for me, I went to college. I went to Algonquin College here in Ottawa for a television broadcasting program.
Oh, cool.
Back then, the focus was shifting away from the traditional TV station, focused on getting a television studio job, cast somewhere, whatever. And so things were starting to shift, but the program there was still kind of focused that way. So now it's more common now for people to get other sorts of degrees. Like there's still a lot of college programs that are really good. Some people will get a university degree, like in journalism, or of course there are some other programs like media studies, which are a little bit more focused on video production and stuff like that. But I think, from what I understand anyways, if you're interested in the technical aspects of the job, then a college program is probably still likely your path. And of course, outside the classroom, like experience is the best teacher, and want to get into it, I think the best thing to do is just let anyone who will let you volunteer.
Yeah. What would you say makes an excellent videographer?
Well, there's some skill sets that apply, of course, like having an eye for what looks good visually will help you when you're shooting video, and having a good sense of how to tell a story will help you in editing. But I think what I look up to in my field is someone who can kind of always bring their full effort to a project, even if the subject matter or the circumstances aren't ideal. So like not every video is going to win you an award in cinematography,
Yeah.
right? And so it's you don't need to bring a huge jib arm or a crane out to a simple sit down interview, but still
Yeah.
you should treat every project like it's important. So it's the people who like get down on the grass and get their knees dirty to get the shot in the mud. Well, even if it's for like
Yeah.
a wedding video or whatever, like even though it's always good, they never change their settings or whatever. Like those types of things kind of set people apart.
How would you say you make a memorable impact?
To tell a story well, this is kind of talking about some of the same things before, but figure out whose voice you are for a project and what it is that they want to say. Sometimes the challenge is that the people you're making a video for don't actually know what they want to say. Like for example, like we get this a lot in government where we'll have subject matter experts. So like people who know a lot about a certain subject. Like when I work for Health Canada, maybe it's a infectious disease expert who wants to give out a message during a pandemic or something like that, and they know what they want to communicate to the public in general. They want to give out this information that people can use to stay safe or whatever. They tend to focus very much too on like precise language. They might not have a really focused idea of what they want to say, right? And so they might focus on things like, oh, you're not using the right scientific term for this message, whereas I might say like, okay, well, I get it.
Yeah.
I know what you're trying to communicate. This is how you say that to a normal person who doesn't have a microbiology degree, right? So like, I think one way to make an impact is to just try to focus the story and make sure that getting your head around what the goal of the video is first of all, and then keeping it in mind throughout the project.
That's really good.
I'd also like to think that I could make a tribute video for my worst enemy and have them be happy with it. Just because I've never done that, but I'd like to think that I'd be up for that challenge.
And the last one is, do you have any advice you would give to someone wanting to become a videographer?
I think the most important thing is to get experience. I touched on it a little bit earlier, but volunteer wherever they will let you do video work. Grab a camera, any camera, and start making videos. Like, don't worry about having good equipment or even good topics. Like, just you're not going to be doing your magnum opus for a little while, or maybe you will. But don't expect to be directing on your first day. Be prepared to do a lot of fetching coffees and coiling cables and carrying things around, doing whatever needs doing. Because if you can be trusted to do the grunt work and the little jobs with a smile, then you're more likely to be trusted to do the higher profile stuff too when it comes up.
For sure.
Another thing would be I'd have a little more confidence than is warranted. Don't lie about your credentials or your experience if someone asks, right? But don't be afraid to try jobs that you may not necessarily feel ready for. You need to stretch your legs a little, stretch yourself a little bit to fill some roles sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one of like putting yourself out there, because I feel like some people feel because they haven't done that much or before that they shouldn't put themselves in a position to try and do it. So I think that's really good advice.
Yeah. And you fail sometimes, like that. That's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel great, but you learn something from it, right?
Exactly. And then we have 3 questions from some students. And the first one is, what events do you tend to film?
Oh, okay. Well, it's not a very exciting answer right now. Because mostly what I'll film right now is ministers giving messages to employees and stuff like that. Or the odd time there'll be a big town hall event or something like that where all the employees will get together and we'll film that. But I can talk about some other events I've filmed in the past, maybe that are a little bit more exciting. So like private sector, I used to film concerts. A lot of times I get the ones that were the most exciting were like, you know, if you've got the stage and then there's a little bit of a gap where the security fence is, whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll see a videographer up there with a camera.
Oh, wow.
Like, sometimes I got to do that, which was fun.
That sounds cool.
Either for promotional stuff, for like promoting the concert after the fact or the festival after the fact, or sometimes for live feed up onto the screen and stuff, which was fun. I've done a little bit of sporting events, but not too much of that. That can be fun too.
Yeah.
Actually, if anyone's looking to do sort of tying back into my advice about getting volunteer work, like Rogers Cable, I'm not sure if they're still doing it, but they used to do a lot of like small time sports events, like high school football, or they'll go out and they'll film them and record them and broadcast them on the local cable channel or whatever. And so like you just have to volunteer essentially.
Yeah.
And get on those crews, so that's not a bad way to get into it if someone's particularly interested in that side of things.
How long does it take for you to edit a video?
That can vary, depending on the complexity, obviously. Like even just this week, I had a minister's message video that was like 2 minutes of them talking to employees, essentially for an event that they couldn't attend, and that took me about a half a day, and it was with subtitles added to it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't breaking my back to go too fast on it. Like that was
Yeah.
that was a relaxed pace. If it's something really complex with lots of maybe visual effects or something in it, then it can take weeks, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it really, really varies. But for straight video, it's normally a matter of half a day to 4 or 5 days, depending on the length and complexity. One of the wrinkles for government is we have to make all our videos accessible as well.
Yeah.
So that we do closed captions and we do subtitles sometimes. It adds a layer which included as part of my calculations for my edit time. So one of the good things actually is AI tools is making that a lot easier.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, it's still not quite to the level where we can fully trust it, but it can do, like, it can transcribe the video and sometimes it'll translate, although again, we don't want to trust it too far from the translation, but
that's helpful. And then lastly, what media do you most enjoy making?
That's a good one. I like making stuff that makes me laugh, although this, again, it's a little bit in short supply for the CRA, but you know, I like getting my wins in where I can. Or the other thing is I shoot some stuff on my own too that's not necessarily work related. Like, so I have a 360 camera that I like playing around with, and so I love going out and finding some weird perspectives on things that this camera lets you shoot in a way that you don't normally see things. Yeah. So that's fun. I most like editing things that involve some kind of creative angle to it, either in the effects side, like I said, the camera angles or something like that, or something that just lets me have a little bit of fun.
Do you have any final comments or anything?
No, thanks. Yeah, I think you let me range pretty wide. Range freely there. I had a good time.
Thank you again to Matt Davis for that great interview about a career as a videographer. If you want to listen to this episode or others like it, you can listen here on CKCU 93.1 FM or wherever you listen to podcasts.